Now, here's something interesting. You got the host of Need to Know podcast appearing on Newsmax. Newsmax apparently is covering a lot of UFOs lately, and they're just right out there with it. And I've cut out all the fluff of David Grutch because we've heard about all him and what he has to say so far. I'm sure there's coming up more in the coming weeks. I think in July he's going to be talking to Congress, but we'll find out more what happens then. But meanwhile, check this out real quick. This is interesting.
Joining us now is the host of Need to Know podcast, Bryce Zabel. And sir, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it. It's amazing to hear a U.S. senator say that the allegation that just came from this whistleblower sounds similar to what he was told in a confidential briefing from the White House.
It is amazing. We are living in extraordinary times because what's happened is the thing that has existed in the shadows for at least 70 years, if you go back to 1947 and potentially Roswell, has now gone in the open. And now people are talking about it. And I should point out that many of the things you said in your introduction, that is what the whistleblower has said in his public interviews. But senators and congressmen have been hearing these kinds of stories for the past year and perhaps even longer, but they've been hearing them in closed-door classified sessions. And perhaps we're about to change that game.
What do you know about this whistleblower? Did he have direct contact with this? I mean, I know he had a very high, he had a lot of access, right? I mean, he was in the geospatial, whatever it is. I mean, he was a decorated, I think, Air Force veteran. What do we know about him?
David Grush is the whistleblower you're talking about. The man has impeccable credentials, and many, many people with equally impeccable credentials have said he is who he is, and he's not making up stories about his access. He had the highest level access, and he was able to go ask people in special access programs what they're all about, and many of them spoke to him. So,
all right, let's pause it right there. What are they doing having a podcast host, a guy who aggregates? I'm an aggregator. I pull things in from all different sources and try to give you understand the narrative the way I understand it. But what are they doing? You making this guy the absolute authority on this. This is a Hollywood producer. I mean, if you don't know this guy is the guy that got up in front of everybody and also said, hey, while I was at my Hollywood producer after show, I had some weirdo come up to me and he told me that I shouldn't portray in my movies the certain way I portray possession. And he says this doesn't happen like that. Now, that was a fascinating story because I don't think what the person that came up to him is necessarily human. I don't think they're alien either. But I think they were probably someone that is trying to influence them. Hollywood is very ripe for being influenced by another realm. And if you don't believe me or if you think this is absolutely crazy, I'll link in the description that show we did on this because it's really fascinating. But this is a Hollywood producer, not an authority in this. But what do you think? All right, here we go.
So he's also, by the way, and I find this incredible, he worked on presidential daily briefings. He was trusted enough by our nation to hand carry those briefings to the Oval Office. This man is not a nobody. I actually sat in, Rob, on 2 of the interviews that he did. So I've met the man, taken his measure personally. I mean, he needs to be proved out to everyone's satisfaction. But I found a man who was extraordinarily patriotic and at the same time someone who felt that the things he had observed and been taught to needed to change.
So I don't disagree with him on this, but I think that if you say, wow, I met the guy and he seemed patriotic, is that sourceful? I mean, we got to think critically about this. Is that a proof of something? Yeah, I think he's probably a resourceful guy. We'll see what happens as the time moves on, but let's continue.
And that he felt that it was time, and I think it's an act of great courage to come forward the way he's done.
What do you say to people? I have a healthy dose of skepticism for everything. I don't think we're alone in this universe. I look out at trillions of stars, and I say it's idiotic to think that we're the only alive thing in that universe. But at the same time, I also have a very healthy skepticism of government. And I think there's a lot of people out there that believe that this could be all just a little dance to give people the distraction so that they're not maybe paying attention to something else. Let's start talking about aliens because our discourse has gotten so bad. What would you say to somebody that believes something like that?
Well, I would say skepticism is always warranted. I'm a reporter myself. I am skeptical. But let's remember, this whole UFO situation that we're talking about now didn't start in 2004 with that very widely publicized Nimitz incident. It started for the United States back in 1947. There have been investigations, reports. There have been other classified people who've come forward. And I should point out, just ask your fellow Americans, there's been hundreds of thousands of them, including cops and military people, every manner of person out there that has seen things that cannot be explained and is looking for answers. So I guess what I would say to people is, let's take Dave Grush for what he says he is. He is an insider who is prepared to tell a story. All right, great. Let's vet who he is, and then let's get investigating on the charges that he's made. And from what I understand, Rob, that's exactly what's going on in Congress. I mean, you just had a guest on, Representative James Comer, and he is behind one of the investigations that's going to go forward with Tim Burchett, probably one of the co-chairs of a committee that's going to look into this and potentially have public hearings. So it's sort of like the starter's gun on this has been fired with Dave Grush, and now it's time for us to see what's going to happen. And I would just remind your viewers, I mean, think back to the Senate Watergate hearings back in '73, or even the Church Committee hearings in '75. Those were widely publicized, and they helped take issues that people weren't focused on and make them public.
That's so true. Great information. Bryce Zabel, thank you, sir, very much for taking the time. We appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Interesting. All right. Subscribe. Stay tuned. This is going to get rocky.